Imagine living in a home where something you can't see scratches you in your sleep, shifts objects across the room, and stalks you from the shadows. This is the story of the Sallie House in Atchison, Kansas, one of the most notorious modern hauntings in American history. But the question that still lingers today is whether this was truly a violent spirit, or just the crushing weight of fear, psychology, and tension slowly tearing a family apart. Which truth is scarier? Our story begins in the early 1990s. A young couple, Tony and Deborah Pickman, were just starting their lives together. They were excited to move into a modest rental home on North 2nd Street with their newborn baby. On the surface, it was the perfect starter home, a quaint, unassuming house in a quiet, small town. For the first few weeks, everything was completely normal. They unpacked their boxes, set up the nursery, and settled into the rhythm of daily life with the new baby. The house felt like a home, but that feeling of peace wouldn't last. Soon, strange, unexplainable things began to happen. At first, they were small, almost dismissible incidents. Lights would flicker on and off for no reason. The television would suddenly turn on by itself, sometimes in the middle of the night, blasting static into the silent house. They'd come home to find kitchen appliances running that they knew they had turned off, but the activity seemed to center around their baby's room. Deborah would carefully arrange her daughter's stuffed animals in the crib, leave the room for just a moment, and return to find them scattered on the floor or arranged in a perfect circle. It was unsettling, but they tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was faulty wiring, or they were just forgetful, exhausted new parents. But the activity quickly escalated from strange to deeply personal, and it started to focus on Tony. One evening, he was walking down the hallway when he froze. He claimed he saw the figure of a young girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, standing at the end of the hall. She had long, dark hair and dark, hollow eyes that just stared at him. Before he could react, she vanished. He tried to tell himself it was a trick of the light, his mind playing games on him after a long day. But he saw her again, and again peeking around corners, standing in the shadows of the bedroom, her silent gaze following him everywhere. This wasn't just a fleeting glimpse anymore. It felt like he was being watched constantly. Then, the psychological terror turned physical. Tony began waking up in the morning with deep, painful scratches across his chest, back, and stomach. They were long, angry red welts, often appearing in sets of 3, like the marks of claws. He had no memory of how he got them. On several occasions, he said he was woken from a dead sleep by an immense pressure on his chest, feeling as if he were being pinned to the bed by an unseen force, struggling for breath. Deborah, while never physically harmed, experienced her own terrifying events. She reported small, inexplicable fires suddenly erupting in the house, only to extinguish themselves moments later, leaving behind scorch marks and the smell of smoke. The family was living in a constant state of fear. This wasn't just a creaky old house anymore. Something was actively targeting them, desperate for answers and terrified for their safety. The Pickmans reached out to paranormal investigators. After conducting several investigations, the teams that visited the house came to a chilling conclusion. They believed the home was haunted by the spirit of a little girl named Sallie. According to their research and psychic readings, Sallie had lived in the house decades earlier. The story went that she had suffered from a severe case of appendicitis. The town doctor, who lived in the home at the time, performed an emergency appendectomy right there on the kitchen table. But he started the incision before the anesthesia had fully taken effect. Sallie, believing she was being tortured, died on that table, her last moments filled with terror and pain. The investigators theorized that her spirit remained, and for some unknown reason, she had become attached to the Pickmans, especially Tony. They believed Sallie was a playful, but ultimately jealous spirit. She liked Deborah and the baby, but she saw Tony as a rival for their attention. The scratches, the pushing, the constant torment, it was all, in their view, the work of a lonely, angry ghost child. This became the accepted haunting version of the Sallie House story, a tale of a tragic spirit lashing out from beyond the grave. But there's another side to this story, one that doesn't involve ghosts at all. Skeptics and researchers who dug into the history of the house and the town of Atchison found some major problems with the paranormal explanation. First and foremost, they could find no historical records, no birth certificates, no death certificates, no census data, no obituaries that confirmed a girl named Sallie ever lived in the house or died under those circumstances. The story of the botched surgery, as tragic as it sounds, appears to have no basis in historical fact. This leads to a completely different theory, the psychological theory. From this perspective, the events in the Sallie house weren't paranormal, but psychogenic. Think about the situation the Pickmans were in. They were a young couple with a newborn baby, which is an incredibly stressful time for anyone. They were likely sleep-deprived and under financial pressure. Some skeptics suggest that Tony's scratches could have been self-inflicted, perhaps unconsciously during his sleep due to a condition known as a parasomnia, triggered by extreme stress. The mind is a powerful thing, and it can cause the body to do strange things, especially under duress. Furthermore, critics point to the role of the paranormal investigators and the media. The more the family talked about the haunting, the more attention they received. Television shows came to film, investigators brought in more equipment, and the story grew more dramatic with each telling. This phenomenon is known as escalation. It's possible that the initial, explainable events created an atmosphere of fear. Once the idea of a haunting was introduced, the family began interpreting every strange noise, every flicker of a light, through that lens. Psychologists call this suggestion. If you're told there's a ghost named Sally who scratches people, you're more likely to attribute a random scratch you find on your body to her, rather than to the family cat or a sharp corner you brushed against. The pressure from media attention and the validation from investigators could have amplified their fear, creating a feedback loop where the belief in the haunting made the experiences feel more real, and the experiences, in turn, strengthened the belief. So, we are left with two compelling, yet completely opposite possibilities. Was the Pickman family targeted by the violent, territorial spirit of a long-dead child, forced to endure years of terrifying physical and psychological attacks? Or were they the victims of their own minds, caught in a perfect storm of stress, suggestion, and escalating fear, fueled by the very people who came to help them? Today, the Sallie House stands as a monument to its own dark legend. The Pickmans moved out long ago, unable to endure the activity any longer. But the story didn't end there. The house is now a popular destination for paranormal tourists and ghost hunters, who can pay to spend the night and conduct their own investigations. And the reports continue. Visitors still claim to hear a child's laughter echoing in the empty halls. They record disembodied voices on their equipment, see shadowy figures darting between rooms, and some even leave with the same unexplained scratches that Tony Pickman reported all those years ago. Others, of course, spend the night and experience absolutely nothing, leaving with nothing more than a spooky story to tell their friends. So, what is the real truth of the Sallie House? Is it a genuine portal to the other side, home to a restless spirit? Or is it simply a powerful example of how human fear, once planted, can grow into a terrifying reality of its own? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in between. In the end, the house keeps its secrets. The question is, which truth do you believe? Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy exploring the mysteries that hide in the shadows, be sure to subscribe for more.